Right, this is the Kubernetes SIG cluster lifecycle meeting for cluster API provider AWS on January 25th, 2021. Please be aware we abide by the CNCF code of conduct. Generally is be excellent to each other. First of all, PSAs got versions 0.64 released for the unmanaged side or actual controller side. Latest feature is rate limiting. So if you are running lots of nodes of stuff, there should be some more fine-grained rate limiting. So we took the EC2 API docs and sort of made rate limiters based on those. Do you want to say anything about changes for EKS, Richard?
No, at the moment.
I guess the big thing is we had the E2E tests are now in for EKS, so we've got CI signal.
Yeah.
So should be fairly confident that you're good to go with EKS clusters. Just on the agenda, I just put some little things. So V1 Alpha 4 progress is I don't know why I repeat myself. Load there's the cluster API load balancer there's going to be a new load balancer construct in cluster API, primarily to support things like data center environments and bare metal. Interesting thing for AWS is VMC on AWS, where or VMware, whatever the equivalent is for Azure, where you're running vSphere clusters on a public cloud, but then you actually want to use the load balancer construct from that cloud in front of the API servers hosting that Kubernetes cluster in the vSphere service, whatever it is happens to be. So this is pretty similar to something that Red Hat raised around external cluster. Like you want to use provision an AWS machine on AWS construct. How does, if outside of an AWS cluster, how do you know where to provision that machine or that load balancer? Not figured that out. I will put a link to the issue, which is, well, this doc that's been written. Some links, link to a doc from Red Hat that describes what they want. I'm not sure it's the right solution, what they're suggesting. I think it works for V1 Alpha 3 or not for V1 Alpha 4. But that's something we need to figure out. And it will become even more intriguing once we have the account multi-tenancy. The other thing I wanted to mention is CRD for AMIs. So I think this relates to something that Dane had raised and a while ago. It's around like if a new AMI comes out for the same Kubernetes version, like you don't have a constant identifier. And we had talked about resolving that AMI within the machine deployment. But there's also another use case where you want to use EBS encrypted volumes, but you also want to use some publicly published AMIs. So I think thinking around this is that we have a separate CRD for AMIs that gets resolved and maybe automatically gets copied into your account. And then you can reference that in your machine deployment. I haven't done much more on that, but I think that's the additional things that I'm probably going to add to the V1 Alpha 4 doc. Is there any questions on that?
So to clarify, you said that would be referenced in the machine deployment.
Yeah. Well, the AWS machine template, sorry.
I'm just trying to think about how that would interact with the upgrade flow, like the change of the version field and things like that.
Yeah, well, yes, we'll need to figure that out. Yeah, you're right.
Maybe we could start an issue on it and have some discussion there.
Yeah, I'll do that. Release. Next topic is release notes from
Oh, yeah, that would be-
Richard, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't put the name. My brain's engaged now. So it's more of just about we've sort of talked about adding the release notes scope to PRs, so that when we generate the releases, we can pull that information out. So it's more of I've just been playing around with that, and the Prowl release notes plugin. We're going to carry on playing with that, really, just in case anyone's interested in also looking at that.
Sure. Fabrizio, as you're on the call, do you know anything from? Do you know why we didn't go for the release notes tool for the cluster API repo?
No, I'm not aware of such a thing.
No probs. Yeah, I'm happy to experiment with that. I haven't got any notes. Has anyone else got any comments, or we move on to the next one? E2E, EKS, Richard?
Yep. Actually, on that last point as well, I'm actually using Cappy to generate the cluster that I'm in, an EKS cluster that I'm actually running Prowl in for that. So it's actually quite a good test for the provider as well. Yeah, so the end-to-end test, basically we had a problem running them. They were taking too long, and they're really flaky. So I've got a PR in to split them into two separate jobs. One being like a general happy path use case that that will just flow through, creating a cluster, adding machine pools, scaling it and stuff like that, just to test as much functionality as quick as possible. And then the second one will be a fuller test. It includes things like upgrades to the control plane and the machine pools. So yeah, that's failing at the moment, the PR, for some reason, but I'll get that merged in.
Well, do you know what the source of the flakes are, by any chance?
It changes. So sometimes it's like, so some of them are, it runs out of elastic IPs. So it's not clearing them up quicker, which is strange, because we actually put a test in there to make sure it was a delete test. And then another one is it just never got to the bottom of this one. It just can't communicate with the control plane on the second cluster, the second run. So, which is a bit strange. And then there's other random errors as well. So, and it takes a long time. So when it does run, so it does occasionally run, it takes like 2 or 3 hours. So.
All right. Yeah, okay. I mean, preference will be to eliminate the flakes, but
Yeah, it's more of
yeah.
So it didn't block because of the RSA stuff that Marcus was working on. He was being blocked from that because he'd run the test and it would fail like 2 hours later. So that's why we split it into the happy path and the full test, so it didn't block people while we sorted the problems out.
Yeah, okay. The other option is, I know we also need to refactor it in the unmanaged cluster because I haven't used Jinko properly in the controller tests, is to have the mocked out tests, mocked out calls to do simulation, so that for some PRs we know there's sufficient unit testing or controller testing that we don't need to run a full PR job, and then it's only things where it's particularly high risk that we need to run the full suite. Sedef, do you want to talk about GoLint?
Yeah, I recently saw the email, probably you all saw, about removing GoLint verification in the Kubernetes repo, and instead replacing it with static check verifications. So I just wanted to bring it up if we want to do the same in cluster API and cluster API providers.
I don't think so, because we're not using GoLint, we're using Golang CI lint. So it's a different, it's a sort of meta linter, which includes a whole bunch of different linters all in one. So we actually have more, things. We do more checks than actually happen in the Kubernetes project, if that's the case. So I don't think we need to do any, there's no action I think we need to take.
Okay. I thought these are the same. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a very small subset. So Golang CI lint will have has 40 linters, of which GoLint is one, static check is another. There's some we probably need to revisit. We've disabled some because we disabled some that we disagree with, and we disabled some just because the code has never passed. It was written before that linter became available, and we should probably go back and fix them. But I don't think we don't need to copy what's been done in Kubernetes project, because they're not using the same linting system.
Okay.
All right, that's the end of the agenda. Has anyone got anything else they'd like to bring up? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right, that's it then. All right, thanks everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.